Well, the need to ensure that we tackle issue of inflation in Nigeria is quite important and is before us. It behoves this government of the great country Nigeria under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari to look inwards and get the nitty-gritty issues concerning how to fix the country's economy. And I said that to say this, a situation where you buy a product, a commodity today, and then you wake up the next morning and you see the price of that same commodity is skyrocketing, increasing at an alarming rate, is quite a pain that Nigerians are really feeling. Discussing this with me, starting from my immediate left, I have a doctor, an economist, a financial and monetary economist, in the University of Benin Department of Economics, and he is the ASU Secretary General, Dr. Success Abusoma. Thanks for joining me, Doctor.
Thank you for having me on your show.
And next to him is a public affairs analyst and also a social media influencer, Gaspar Ivalode. Thanks for coming, Gaspar.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, I start with the economic expert. Looking at what we're faced with, I just brought an intro concerning how you get a commodity today and tomorrow is skyrocketing. Nigerians are waiting. When should this whole issue of inflation be put to rest? So what do you think about this present issue in Nigeria concerning inflation?
Inflation in Nigeria is a topical issue, is a macroeconomic issue, as well as a monetary economic issue. It has a debilitating role on the economy. It affects the economy adversely. That's why attention has to be put or focused on tackling this menace in the economy called inflation. In Nigeria, inflation rate right now from the September figure is 16.63%.
Wow.
Which is very, very high compared to countries like South Africa with inflation rate of 5%, and even Egypt with inflation rate of 6.6%. Inflation in Nigeria is 2 digits compared to some other nations who are still grappling with their single-digit inflation. So despite the fact that it seems to be decreasing, because as it were, it decreased from May, year on year.
It decreased in Nigeria?
It decreased from...
You mean in this country?
Yes. In May, it was 17.9%.
Okay.
Then in August, it was 17.01%. And it's 16.63%. It seems to be decreasing.
It seems to be decreasing.
And I'm sure...
Because Nigerians will be asking the big question,
yes.
What is the what are the yardsticks?
Yes.
In measuring this, because the average Nigerian is still neck deep.
Yes, the decrease should not be confusing to us, because we are looking at the rate of increase in inflation. That's what's decreasing.
Oh.
The rate of increase in inflation.
Oh, otherwise, the inflation is still
year on year. Yes, inflation is 16.63%. What that means is, from last September to September 2020. To September 2021, there's been increase in general prices of goods and services by 16.63%.
Wow.
Core inflation rate, also month-to-month inflation rate has also been on the increase. Fine, year-to-year inflation rate has been declining, but we should not forget that month-to-month inflation rate has been on the increase. For instance, in August, it increased by 1.02%. Which is 102 basis points. It's a very big, high increase. Then in September, increased by 1.15%, which is 115 basis points. That's the core inflation rate. Food inflation is currently 19.5%.
Wow.
Food inflation. Core inflation, anyway, the decline in the inflation, year-on-year inflation, is as a result of the seeming decline in food inflation.
Okay.
But core inflation is currently on the rise.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
Month-on-month inflation is also currently on the rise.
Okay.
So we shouldn't be happy that, because that's what we're seeing everywhere.
Okay.
A lot that inflation is declining.
Yeah.
In the real sense, it is not declining.
Okay.
And we should also realize that last year was COVID-19, you know,
the pandemic.
The restrictions had been easing out, you understand, since last year. So that has resulted in what we see in the decline year-on-year inflation since May 2021.
Okay, well,
month-on-month inflation is still rising.
Okay, a lot of questions for you, but yes. Before I go to Ibadode, let's quickly ask you this. You know, we have this great country, Nigeria, and when we see this inflation, some Nigerians are feeling, do we have a government? And now, if we look at the Monetary Policy Committee, some Nigerians feel that the committee seems to be sitting on its hand. What's your conception about that?
To me, I wouldn't say they are not sitting on their hands. I wouldn't also say they are sitting.
Okay.
Why? Because the Monetary Committee are restricted to what they can actually do. You understand? There seems to be a disconnect between monetary policy and fiscal policy in Nigeria. Whereas the government wants the economy to grow, politicians want to post increasing growth. You understand? But the core mandate of the CBN is price stability. They are supposed to check inflation, the CBN. So, but government wants the economy to grow. The CBN is supposed to check inflation. You understand? So, somehow, the monetary policy had kept, by the monetary policy, the committee had kept rates constant over time. The reason is because they had to ensure that the economy grows. Because if you reduce the interest rate, that's, you know, that would be risking the economy for further inflation. If you increase the interest rate, that would be, you know, reducing growth, economic growth. So it has been stable. Another reason why the effect of monetary policy is not so much felt is because the financial system in Nigeria is grossly underdeveloped.
Wow.
It's only when the financial system is developed, when there is financial inclusion, that's when monetary policy can affect the real sector variables. But as it stands in the Nigerian economy, the financial exclusion is still very high. The financial debt and the financial breadth of the Nigerian financial system is still very low. And I'm sorry to say, but you know, the policies are also not helping matters, because interest rate is on the high. The cost of financial services is on the high. And with all these indications, you cannot expect the financial sector to be developed.
It means the government has to do a lot.
Yes, a lot still has to be done to ensure the development of the financial sector, especially the banking sector, so that people are able to access these services. And by so doing, monetary policy will be able to affect the economy the way it should be.
Thank you. I'll come back to you. Let's quickly tackle this. And Ibadode, we have this issue where Nigerians woke up one morning and saw that the federal government is increasing, is reintroducing VAT on gas. Now, the price of gas per kg, you know, is quite alarming in terms of the increase. How did you greet this development, Ibadode?
When I want to talk on issues like this, I try as much as possible to put a lot of restrictions, not to just say them the way actually I would want to do.
Or the way you feel.
Because we are on air, and to an extent, we have to also be guided.
It shows you are not really pleased.
you have to be guided.
That's the bottom line.
It shows a serious demarcation between the governed and the governed, because there is no empathy anywhere.
A demarcation between those who govern and the governed.
Yes, there's no empathy anywhere. Do you know why I say that? These elements that will just wake up one morning and decide to introduce VAT, they don't buy. They use these commodities on the basis of the tax we pay.
So by that you are saying that they don't really care.
They don't care. They don't feel the impact, because if they do, we're talking about a minimum wage of 30 that some states are still even grappling to pay. We are talking about a society where graduates are underemployed. It further means if gas, as I just now, 12.5 kg is sold at the rate of 10,000, it further means a teacher in the private school, perhaps who is paid 19,000, ends to just buy a gas and be left with 9,000 naira.
What do you cook with?
What do you have school fees to pay? And we are preaching a society to be honest. We are preaching a society to be morally stable, and the people who want us to be stable are not stable. They are not stable, because it will be a serious disservice to a man that you pay 19,000. At the end of the month, he has to pay 8,000 naira house rent. Out of 19,000, he has to fill his gas. Then at the end of the day, you tell him not to go into nefarious activities. You tell him not to buy into crime. You tell him to be a good citizen. How will such a person be a good citizen when the government who was supposed to see him or her as an entity to be protected has been made vulnerable?
Well, I think
these are. I told you just now. I told you just now.
Policies. Yes, I think government policies could be for a purpose, and you may not really understand it because you are not looking from the expert point of view.
Okay.
We have an expert in there. So, do you toe the same line with Ibadode as regards to the reintroduction of VAT on liquefied petroleum gas?
Very well. In fact, that's
you told the same line.
That's one. Yes. In fact, that's the main component of core inflation that we are currently experiencing.
All right.
Core inflation increased from 13.3% year on year in August to 13.7% in September, because of the increase in gas, especially.
Wow.
Because of the increase in gas. It's a household necessity. And most Nigerians, this is what they now resort to, because kerosene was expensive relatively.
Yes, and they decided to.
Good. And we're talking about, conservatism in terms of the environment. People are going to start felling trees.
Yes.
People are going to resort to options.
Yes.
Houses are going to start getting burnt, because people will start using electricity to, they'll get hot plate and start cooking with hot plate. And by so doing, hazard their lives. You understand? So, inflation, you want to curb inflation, for instance, and you are increasing VAT on a necessity. There is no household that doesn't cook. There is no household that doesn't use whatever means to cook.
So you are saying that that's a wrong step to take by the government?
Yes, it is. It is a wrong step to take. They're not supposed to increase the VAT.
Okay, let's look at the aspect of the appropriation bill as presented by the president to the National Assembly just now, like 7th of October. And it's taken 16.39 trillion naira. And reflecting on that appropriation bill shows that about 38% of the part of that budget will be financed by loans. Well, I'll come back to you, but I think let Ibadode take it from there. What do you think of that?
It's funny. You see, when the economist was talking, I actually was enjoying it, because the scientific implications of these whole applications and implementations of policy, he was able to bring it down to the basics, such that a layman will understand these reflections. financing a budget via loan is actually not the problem. It's actually not the problem. Because an average businessman must take loans to make his business grow.
So you don't see anything wrong in that?
But where the problem is, how much is going into capital expenditure
Okay.
from this said loan? How sincere are those who is going to persecute this capital expenditure would be?
And what is the
You
recurrent
understand?
expenditure getting?
Then, if the current expenditure is going to take 65 or 80% of the loan, it means we are finished. We are gone. If the loan, 85% or 80%, is going to be on your current expenditure, it further means that there's crisis, although we know there is crisis.
Okay. I'll come back to you. The way you say the appropriation bill, do you see that as hope for Nigeria in terms of curbing inflation?
I would say yes and no.
Oh.
I would say yes and no. So they've only allocated more monies to increase the cost of governance,
Exactly.
to increase the size of government. Do you understand? What impacts on investment is capital expenditure. And I was shocked to see that capital expenditure was decreased from the 2021 appropriation.
Wow.
By 2%. When we are saying that infrastructure is on the, in fact, on the low. Go to Ekpoma, no roads. Go everywhere, no roads, no infrastructure. And it's capital expenditure you use to improve infrastructure. So, capital expenditure was decreased by 2%. I'm wondering, what is this government thinking?
Okay, but the Minister of Finance was saying that they need to borrow money for capital expenditure for infrastructure development. And there's nothing wrong in borrowing money for that.
Yeah, of course.
There is nothing wrong. But
Nothing.
again, if you look at the budget, the deficit is above 6 trillion. Whereas capital expenditure is just 4.8 trillion. Meaning, even if you were to borrow, you are not borrowing only for capital expenditure.
Okay.
You are borrowing to spend. For
So-
right now in Nigeria, the cost of governance is higher than the income of governance. The output of governance that people can feel.
So we are treading on
So
the wrong
it's
path.
higher. It's higher. So why would you go and borrow for recurrent expenditure?
That's the problem.
Why will you borrow for recurrent expenditure? The debt service currently from the budget is about 3.6 trillion. You have budgeted 3.6 trillion for debt service, which is, so you are borrowing to spend on
Nothing.
nothing that will bring back
Value.
to the
the
economy.
Okay, thank you very much. I've been having a chat with an economic expert and, of course, a social media influencer and a public affairs analyst, economic expert in the person of Dr. Success Abu-Soma, who is a lecturer at University of Benin in the economics department, and he is also the Secretary General of ASU, Benin branch, rather. And also, we're looking at the aspect of the #EndSARS protest. What has been up? You agree with me that it's been like a year anniversary, and there's been a memorial plan to come up with a protest, looking at the need or demands that the #EndSARS protest came up with, which includes the aspect of releasing the #EndSARS protesters, who reports have it that about 300 of them are still in the correctional center Kirikiri in Lagos State. And again, we look at the need to set up judicial panels of inquiry, which some states failed in setting up, like Borno, Zamfara, Kebbi, Kano, Yobe. What do you make of this, Ibadude? Because we look at these challenges, and the youths are making a plan to embark on streets, but the government is saying, we're not going to allow you to do that. The security agencies are saying, don't do that. In midst of the demands that they are posing out, what do you make of this? I was saying that we are on the right path in this aspect, like the government towing a plan not to allow them to make that memorial protest.
What are you asking me? That if we are correct in deceiving ourselves as a people. Bronu, Kirby, were they part of the answers? The answer is no, they were not part.
Okay.
So we never expected that they would set up judicial inquiry.
Okay,
you know?
so you are saying that
they were not part of it.
They don't face police brutality.
Oh, well, it's for them to say and not for God's power to say. It's for them to answer. For those people who felt they were facing serious police brutality, came out to the streets and, aired their minds. So for those people who also didn't come out to air their minds, it's obvious that they didn't feel that. So it's not for them to begin to say for them, it's for them to say for themselves.
Okay, so what do you make of the way forward?
The way forward is this. The way forward is this. One, let the government try as much as possible to keep to their promises. They came out to say, oh, we are going to set up a judicial inquiry to ensure that people who were victimized and brutalized are compensated to about 28 states. Set up this panel of inquiry, and they have not given their reports. I don't know what they are waiting for. So if they can begin, it's not a matter of you saying don't hit the streets.
Okay, but we have reports that Lagos State is already paying compensation to
let
families
them start.
Then
if they start, other states follow suit. Then release those protesters who have been in incarceration. Then at that point, the government can sit down to re-evaluate their own self. What led to this? We saw on social media, see police brutalizing people. Okay. Have they learned? What measure have they put in place to ensure that the protest will not hold?
Okay.
So
Thank you very much.
The government need to do for themselves.
Your final words on this in a minute, Dr. Abosa.
Government should let the people speak. They should not remove the freedom of expression from people. You can't be beating someone and still close the person's mouth from crying.
Okay.
What you should do, listen to what people are saying. It's shocking to me that government does not seem to realize the purpose for that NSAS protest, because we still see on daily basis people still being brutalized.
Thank you very much, Dr. Success Abusawa. We're afraid that's much we can take on this. Big thanks, Ibadude, for taking out time part of this. Well, it's still this morning on ITV. We take a short break. Do stay tuned.